Hello, I'm Batyar Sanovan and you are watching A News. Now let's take a look at today's top stories. The United Nations Security Council votes to endorse Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. We'll be selling F-35s to Saudi Arabia, says President Donald Trump as the Crown Prince makes his way to Washington. And Baku hosts the first Azerbaijan-United States think tank forum, spotlighting a new strategic partnership in the South Caucasus. Good afternoon. The UN Security Council has voted in favor of a U.S.-drafted resolution that endorses U.S. President Donald Trump's 20-point plan for Gaza. Included in the plan is the establishment of an international stabilization force, which the United States says multiple countries have offered to contribute towards. The resolution was backed by 13 countries, including the United Kingdom and France, with none voting against the proposal. Russia and China abstained.
Inside the United Nations Security Council chamber, Monday's vote marked one of the most significant diplomatic interventions since the start of the two-year war in Gaza, as the Council formally adopted a US-drafted resolution backing President Donald Trump's plan for the Strip. The move validates the authorization of an international stabilization force, as well as the 20-point framework to secure the ceasefire and shape Gaza's post-war governance. The voting process itself was swift.
I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. With those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/748, please raise their hand.
No country opposed the measure. Russia and China abstained.
The result of the voting is as follows: 13 votes in favor, 0 votes against, 2 abstentions. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2803, 2025.
Before the vote, the US Ambassador Mike Waltz set a dramatic tone, portraying Gaza as a humanitarian catastrophe and urging member states to back what he called a vital pathway out of conflict.
This resolution, colleagues, is no mere paper promise. It's a lifeline. The resolution endorses a hard-won ceasefire.
Washington argues the plan provides the first realistic political horizon in years, including reforms within the Palestinian Authority and a transition towards self-determination. But reactions in the chamber highlighted clear geopolitical divides. Algeria stressed that no diplomatic framework can endure without justice for the Palestinian people.
Genuine peace in the Middle East cannot be achieved without justice. Justice for the Palestinian people.
Russia and China criticized the resolution's lack of detail, questioning the composition, mandate and oversight of the proposed Board of Peace and Stabilization Force.
It's blessing a US initiative on the basis of Washington's promises, giving complete control over the Gaza Strip to the Board of Peace and the ISF, the modalities of which we know nothing about so far.
Outside the United Nations, the strongest rejection came from Hamas. In a statement issued shortly after the vote, the group accused the Security Council of imposing an international guardianship mechanism on Gaza and said any attempt to disarm its fighters would make the international force a party to the conflict. Hamas insisted that if foreign troops are ever deployed, they should be stationed only at borders and operate strictly under UN supervision. Meanwhile, President Trump celebrated the resolution on social media, calling it a moment of historic proportion and confirming he will chair the newly created Board of Peace.
In Gaza itself, thousands of displaced families are enduring the impact of a winter storm that has swept through the camps. Shelters have been flooded, leaving people struggling to stay warm and dry. Let's take a look.
In Gaza, a sudden downpour turned camps for displaced people into a waterlogged trap. A storm on Friday has turned the camps into pools of mud and contaminated water, with freezing temperatures and heavy rainfall putting people's lives at risk. Soaked mattresses and blankets lay ruined inside flooded tents, leaving hundreds of families with nowhere dry enough to sleep or shelter from the cold.
We were flooded. No one knows how we survived. My family had to flee here temporarily. The tent is torn and rainwater keeps seeping in. We are so crushed by day-to-day living that sometimes we even wish death could come to us before a greater catastrophe did we want to live, but every day feels like dying 100 times.
Rainwater kept rushing in from both the roof and the ground. We were completely swamped. We have no mattress, no blanket, we are all drenched. We stayed awake all night because it was simply impossible to fall asleep. This is already the third consecutive winter we've had to try everything to keep our children warm, but there's truly nothing I can do.
Many families are still barred from returning to homes in areas still controlled by the Israeli military, despite the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, and many survive in fragile shelters pieced together from scraps. Humanitarian groups warn the needs are overwhelming. About 260,000 Palestinian families require emergency shelter support just to make it through the winter. However, NGOs say they have been able to bring in only 19,000 tents since the ceasefire began last month.
Turkey says it's continuing its humanitarian support for Gaza despite what it describes as ongoing disruptions by Israel. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan reaffirmed his commitment after a cabinet meeting in Ankara, emphasizing that Turkey will not reduce its aid efforts. Our Aliye Iman reports from Istanbul.
President Erdogan underlined that Turkey's humanitarian mission to Gaza is continuing without pause, even as Israeli authorities impose what he described as obstacles to aid flow and logistical coordination. He said Turkey's priority remains delivering food, medicine, and essential supplies to civilians facing an increasingly dire situation in the zone. According to the president, the Turkish Red Crescent's latest goodwill ship, carrying nearly 800 tons of humanitarian aid, including winter clothing, medical materials, and basic food items, recently reached Egypt's El Arish port before being transported toward Gaza. Erdogan added that Turkey is also supporting daily hot meal distribution, medical services, and shelter assistance inside Gaza, noting that Ankara has mobilized all available state resources to sustain these operations. The president warned that the humanitarian crisis is getting worse, noting that Gaza's situation is almost unlivable, despite an officially declared ceasefire. He condemned Israel's actions as unacceptable and emphasized that regional stability cannot be achieved while Palestinians remain under occupation and are denied the opportunity for a viable sovereign state. Erdogan highlighted that Turkey's position is based on international law, humanitarian responsibility, and a commitment to regional peace building. This is Aliye Iman, Istanbul, Turkey, A News.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will urgently convene cabinet ministers after a wave of settler attacks on Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Homes and cars were torched in the village of Jabba near Bethlehem, prompting growing pressure on Israel to curb the violence. Our report begins with the scenes from the village.
Residents in the village of Jabba near Bethlehem say Israeli settlers have torched cars, damaged homes and thrown rocks in overnight attacks.
We were at home when we heard banging. They threw rocks, broke the car window, then burned my uncle's car, my cousin's cars. This is what happened.
Footage from the scene shows burnt vehicles, smashed windows and Molotov damage inside homes.
They broke all the windows of the house. They fired Molotov cocktails inside the house.
Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will urgently convene cabinet ministers to ensure those behind the latest attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank are brought to justice. He condemned the attacks on social media, calling the perpetrators a small extremist group and instructing law enforcement agencies to act to the fullest extent of the law. Israel's defense minister said the government is preparing a new plan to allocate additional resources to address settler violence. The military said forces have been deployed to Jabba and searches for the suspects are underway. The Palestinian cabinet urged the international community to intervene, accusing Israel of failing to stop attacks they say violate international law. According to the United Nations, settler assaults on Palestinians reached at least 264 incidents in October. That's the highest monthly figure since records began in 2006.
Washington is preparing for a high-profile visit by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, with major defense and investment deals expected. Talks with President Donald Trump will focus on a possible U.S.-Saudi security pact, the F-35 jet sale, and efforts to advance regional normalization with Israel. The visit comes as the U.S. pushes a UN plan for stabilization force and new governance structure in Gaza. Our Ubi Shvaner has more.
Washington, D.C. is gearing up for what is expected to be a massive state visit by the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. The Crown Prince will meet with President Trump, and also he will oversee a U.S.-Saudi investment summit to be held at the Kennedy Center. Billions of dollars worth of deals between the two countries is expected to be signed. On Monday, President Trump said that he will approve a sale of the advanced F-35 stealth fighter jet to the kingdom. Saudi Arabia will be the first Arab nation in the Middle East to operate the aircraft. Israel is the only other nation in the region that has the F-35, which makes the sale to Saudi Arabia a big deal, given U.S. commitments to Israel that any sale of weapons in the Middle East should not impact Israel's qualitative military edge over its neighbors. On the agenda for Trump's talk with the Crown Prince will be normalization with Israel and a potential U.S.-Saudi security agreement that would commit the United States to Saudi Arabia's defense. Officials here in Washington expect that Israel will seek certain security guarantees from the American side to ensure that any F-35 sold to Saudi Arabia will not be stationed in air bases within range of Israel. The U.S. already has tens of billions of dollars worth of military deals with Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries. President Trump has said that such defense deals are mutually beneficial for the U.S. and its Arab partners. President Trump will be pressing Crown Prince bin Salman on normalizing ties with Israel and expanding Trump's landmark Abraham Accords agreement. But the Saudis are expected to push back, saying that they want guarantees from Israel in establishing a two-state solution with the Palestinians. Gaza looms large over any potential diplomatic breakthrough between Saudi Arabia and Israel. The United Nations Security Council on Monday approved a U.S.-backed resolution to establish an international stabilization force that will operate on the ground in Gaza for at least 2 years. The resolution will also establish a board of peace, which will govern Gaza. President Trump has said that he will chair the board of peace, with the U.S. and other partner countries expected to oversee Gaza and attempt to demilitarize and rebuild the destroyed enclave. This has been your update from Washington, D.C. I'm Ubi Shabander, A News.
And here is what President Donald Trump had to say.
Yeah, no, I am planning on doing that. Yeah.
You're going
they
to
want
sell
to
that
buy it. They've been a great ally. They've got to like us very much. Look at the Iran situation, what we did in terms of obliterating, we obliterated their nuclear capability. Yeah, I will say that we will be doing that. We'll be selling F-35s. Yeah.
On Monday, President Donald Trump lent his support to a House Republican effort to publish files on Jeffrey Epstein, the late convicted sex offender, labeling it a Democrat problem and accusing leading Democrats of having ties to him. President Donald Trump had previously opposed the release but changed his stance after a petition forced a vote. The House is now set to vote on Tuesday on whether to make the Justice Department's unclassified files public. The president has said he had no connection to Epstein's crimes.
Here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein, the Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this Reid Hoffman, you look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others, they're all Democrats. All I want is I want for people to recognize a great job that I've done on pricing, on affordability, because we brought prices way down, but they're going way lower, on energy, on ending 8 wars and another one coming pretty soon, I believe. We've done a great job.
Johannesburg is finalizing preparations for this weekend's G20 Leaders Summit, with police and traffic teams securing key routes. South Africa, the first African country to host the G20, says the event has helped elevate African perspectives on the global stage, placing inclusivity and inequality firmly in focus.
Johannesburg is in the final stages of preparations for the G20 Leaders Summit on the 22nd to the 23rd of November. Key sites tied to the meeting include the FNB Stadium and the Johannesburg Expo Centre in Nasrec, which will host diplomatic meetings. Security has been tightened across the city, with additional checkpoints and patrols along major routes. Gauteng Traffic Police and the South African Police Service are active across the inner city, directing traffic, managing convoys and positioning patrols. Daily activity continues across Johannesburg, including busy taxi ranks, pedestrians in crowded streets, and public safety personnel on duty. Security drills and traffic blocks are in place to manage the flow of delegations. Some roads face waterlogging, and there are areas with litter and individuals searching through rubbish, clear reminders of Johannesburg's ongoing urban challenges. The G20, or Group of 20, is a forum made up of the world's largest economies and regional bodies. Its annual summit brings together heads of state to coordinate on global economic policy, climate finance, trade and development. Because this is the first time a G20 summit is being held in Africa, it carries special significance. South Africa, under the presidency theme Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability, aims to bring African issues such as climate finance, debt relief and more inclusive trade to the forefront.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss Washington's move to advance Saudi Arabia's F-35 jet purchase and what this means for U.S.-Saudi security ties and Middle East policy. See you shortly. Welcome back to A News. Now let's go back to one of our top stories today. Washington says it's ready to advance Saudi Arabia's request to purchase F-35 fighter jets, a significant step that comes just ahead of President Donald Trump's meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the White House. The move signals a deepening U.S.-Saudi security partnership as the president looks to secure major business and defense agreements during the visit. The stakes for U.S. policy in the Middle East continue to rise. To help us understand the strategic implications of this development, we're joined by Professor Ivani Wasseler from the State University of New York, joining us from the New York City. Professor Wasseler, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you so much.
Professor, how significant is Washington's move to push forward with Saudi Arabia's request for F-35s at this particular moment?
It is very significant. This relationship between the bilateral relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States always has been relevant and is becoming even more now during the Trump administration. it is relevant, this agreement, for the selling of military equipment in connection with the objectives of the Trump administration in the Middle East. One of these very important objectives is, first of all, to solidify the relationship between both countries, Washington and Saudi Arabia, but also to rearrange, right, the balance of the forces in the region. As we know, so far, the only country in the region that has bought or has received this type of military craft, the F-35 from Washington, is Israel. So Saudi Arabia now becomes the first Arab country in Middle East to receive this equipment, and the idea is that Saudi Arabia, in the end, can join the Abraham Accords.
Professor Wasseler, to what extent is Iran's regional posture influencing Washington's approval of advanced weapons for Riyadh?
So there is no, really, or there are, I would say, no public statements in this regard, at least in the last few days, but is in the calculations of Washington to enhance the position of Saudi Arabia in the Middle East against, right, the position of Iran. As we know, they have been both countries adversaries. They, for a while at least, competed for the hegemony in the Middle East. And at this point, for Washington, the idea is to strengthen the position of Saudi Arabia as an important interlocutor in Middle East affairs.
So what do you think? How might this deal reshape the regional balance of power, particularly given Israel's existing F-35 capability?
So for several years now, Israel had remained as the only country in possession of the F-35. And now, by the announcement of President Trump, and he is in this morning with the Prince of Saudi Arabia in the White House. The idea is to provide then Saudi Arabia with with the F-35. And this is very significant because, again, gives strength to Saudi Arabia, consolidate the ties between United States and Saudi Arabia, put Saudi Arabia in a position of show force in the region. And again, the hope is that this type of negotiations in the field of defense, military equipment, is going to convince Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. That was a plan for the peace in the Middle East, created by President Trump during his first term. The idea is that Israel, with the Abraham Accords, will normalize its relations with some Arab countries. And some Arab countries already joined the Abraham Accords, like Morocco, for example, and Sudan, for example. But really, from the perspective of Washington, the country that needs most to join the Abraham Accords is Saudi Arabia.
Professor Wassler, do you expect Congress to raise objections or attempt to slow down the approval process of F-35 sales?
It's not likely that there is going to be any objection, including considering the fact that President Trump has a majority in the House and in the Senate. His party, the Republican Party, has the majority in both houses of the US Congress, so it's not likely that's going to be any objection yet. It could be some slowdown in the process of approving because of domestic politics. There have been several things going on in the Congress of the United States at this moment, including the Congress is ready, the House at this point, to vote a resolution for the liberation of the documents associated with so-called Epstein files.
Yes.
And this could delay a little bit the examination and deliberations about the agreement with Saudi Arabia, but no objection is going to happen. And President Trump is expecting that Saudi Arabia is also make an offer or announce an offer for investments in the United States of $600 billion.
And also, what do you think? How might this deal impact U.S. leverage over Saudi Arabia on broader issues such as energy markets, Yemen, and human rights concerns?
Yeah, I believe that in relation to the energy issue, obviously, the United States always has had an influence in Saudi Arabia and other oil-producing countries, and it is not going to be different in relation to Saudi Arabia. Human rights concerns is a different story, and it's difficult at this point to imagine that Washington, that President Trump is going to bring the issue of human rights to the discussions of the prince, the Arab prince bin Salman, Saudi Arabia prince. Is very difficult. This issue is not likely to be in the discussions today.
Professor Wassler, thank you very much for your insights and for joining us today. We appreciate your time and perspectives. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you for having me.
After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Baku is hosting the first Azerbaijan-United States think tank forum today following the August Washington summit, where leaders agreed to a strategic partnership. Experts say the move could reshape South Caucasus security and boost Azerbaijan's role as a bridge between Europe and Asia. Nuray Mustafa has more.
The first Azerbaijan-US think tank forum has officially commenced in Baku, dedicating to ushering bilateral relations into a new phase. The event serves as a key platform for discussions on the region's evolving geopolitical agenda. The forum focused on the outcomes of the Washington summit on 8 August 2025 and their implications for relations between the two nations. The agreement reached at the summit between President Ilham Aliyev and President Donald Trump to elevate ties to a strategic partnership set the central theme for discussions in Baku. Experts noted that this step opens new avenues for security and cooperation in the South Caucasus. The forum also examined shifting global energy routes, the deepening competition among major powers, and Azerbaijan's increasingly pivotal role as a strategic bridge between Europe and Asia.
The United States understands that the Central Asian states have an important requirement to get their products directly to world markets. So the administration is interested in the middle corridor concept that Kazakhstan in particular has been pushing for years. Trump is interested in making peace, led to his engagement with Azerbaijan and Armenia. And a very important part of that engagement is the transportation route in the south, which we're now calling the Trump transportation route. So Trump has put all these things together, I think in a very smart way, and developing cooperation with the Central Asian states and with Armenia and Azerbaijan and Turkey.
Project as something that binds to really bring to life the entire middle corridor.
Within the forum, the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace process and emerging post-conflict regional order were assessed. Delegates observed that diplomatic engagement has intensified following the Washington summit, and deliberation focused on prospects for a peace treaty, border delimitation, and humanitarian issues. The necessity of practical mechanisms and confidence-building measures to ensure lasting peace was emphasized.
I think the Trump route will play a huge role in making sure that happens. The second thing, so that is a geopolitical, political issue. The second is logistical. There are issues with how do you connect cross-Caspian. So it's still an issue. If you're going to build pipelines from Turkmenistan, how will that work? If you're going to do tanker traffic from Kazakhstan, I don't mean at current scales, I mean at much bigger scales, then how will that work?
Overall attention was drawn to Azerbaijan's growing role in linking energy, transport and digital networks across Eurasia. Key topics included the expansions of the Southern Gas Corridor, renewable energy initiatives, and the development of the Middle Corridor. Experts highlighted that strengthening digital infrastructure and fostering cooperation in artificial intelligence could accelerate sustainable development and economic transformation across the region.
As far as Azerbaijan-US relations is concerned, we hope that we will come to the logical conclusion in signing the strategic partnership agreement, and subsequently we're speaking about a broader perspective for investment, for trade, for new sectors development in Azerbaijan's economy like IT, artificial intelligence, etc.
Participants agreed that integration traditional energy partnership with modern technological initiatives would further consolidate Azerbaijan's position as a strategic hub in the region.
The so-called Trump Route project, which aims to link mainland Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan, has moved a step closer. A joint working group between Armenia and the United States has been launched, following agreements reached between Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and President Donald Trump.
Armenia and the United States have launched a joint working group for the Trump Route project, a US-backed corridor through Armenia that would link mainland Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan, also called the Trip Corridor in Yerevan on Monday. US Deputy Assistant Secretary Alison Hooker said new bilateral working groups led by Senator Coulter are now advancing the agreements reached at a summit in Washington last August. The US delegation said they also discussed expanding cooperation in trade, infrastructure, investment, regional connectivity and security. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said ties between Armenia and the United States have entered a new phase. According to the Armenian government, Washington believes progress in Armenia-Azerbaijan peace talks and the normalization with Turkey create an opening for the South Caucasus to emerge as a key trade corridor. Under the declaration signed on the 8th of August, Armenia will grant the US exclusive rights for up to 99 years to develop and operate the Trip Corridor under Armenian legislation. Washington is expected to sublease the land to a consortium responsible for construction and management.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan is visiting Kazakhstan at the end of this week. During his two-day official visit, he will meet with Kazakh officials to discuss trade, transport and regional cooperation. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimurzina reports from Almaty.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan is set to visit Astana on the 20th and 21st of November, according to the press service of Akorda. During this official visit, delegations from Kazakhstan and Armenia will hold talks focused on the current state of bilateral relations and possible areas for expanded cooperation. Economic ties between Kazakhstan and Armenia are based on both bilateral agreements and their participation in the Eurasian Economic Union. According to 2024 data, trade turnover between the two countries reached around $36 million. While this figure is relatively low, analysts see potential for growth, particularly given recent developments in the region. One key development has been the joint declaration signed by Armenia and Azerbaijan in Washington in August. This agreement reopened the border transit between the two countries for the first time in many years. And notably, the transit cargo moving through Azerbaijan into Armenia under this new arrangement was wheat from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is looking to expand transit routes across the Caucasus toward Middle Eastern markets. In Armenia, for its part, sees opportunities to reach Central Asian and Chinese markets through Kazakhstan. Also, the Trans-Caspian corridor plays a key role in these plans, with Kazakhstan investing in increased capacity for ports and railway infrastructure. For Armenia, participating in these transit routes could help diversify logistics and reduce dependence on previously unstable regional roads. In this context, Pashinyan's visit carries practical importance. Observers note that the talks in Astana are expected to be focused and substantive, reflecting both countries' interest in strengthening economic and transport links as regional relations continue to normalize. Fariza Kalimurdzina, Almaty, A News.
Azerbaijan's Khankendi recently played host to the 27th plenary meeting of the Conference of Special Service Bodies of Turkic States. The gathering of intelligence and security chiefs focused on ensuring the security of international transport lines. Let's take a look.
The 27th plenary meeting of the Conference of Special Service Bodies of Turkic States was held in the city of Khankendi. The main topic of meeting was the role of special service bodies in ensuring the security of international transport routes. The event was attended by spy chiefs of Azerbaijan, Turkey, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, as well as a representative from Hungary as an honorary guest. Declaring the event open, the Chief of the State Security Service, Colonel General Ali Nagiev, noted that the world's transportation and communications lines remain vulnerable to current global security threats, while highlighting the region's strategic importance.
In recent times, confrontations observed in various parts of the world have led to a rise in challenges that seriously threaten international and regional security. In this context, strengthening cooperation between the special services and security agencies is of great importance to ensure the protection of the broad transportation network connecting Europe and Asia that passes through our countries.
Colonel General Ali Nagiev also emphasized the need to further deepen cooperation among the agencies, highlighting the growing importance of joint efforts in today's security environment.
Expanding bilateral and multilateral cooperation between our institutions for information exchange and for combating international terrorism and transnational organized crime is of vital importance.
The meeting concluded with the signing of multilateral agreements and verbal pledges to strengthen cooperation among the participating states.
The first Caspian Governors Forum has opened in Rasht, Iran, with officials from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Russia and Turkmenistan in attendance. Over 2 days, they will discuss investment, transit and environmental challenges, aiming to strengthen regional cooperation and ties across the Caspian. Now, Turaj Relilo has more.
the first Caspian Governors Forum, which kicked off in the Iranian city of Rasht, capital of the Caspian province of Gilan, on Tuesday, continued its proceedings, exchanging views on investment, transit, and environmental issues of the world's largest inland body of water. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Tourism Minister Reza Salehi Amiri opened the two-day conference, and First Vice President Mohammad Reza Aref will close its deliberations on Wednesday following a visit to the free trade zone of Bandar Anzali port. Araghchi stressed importance of joint measures by the littoral states and hoped that the conference will serve as a major step to contribute to increased regional cooperation. The Governor Generals of the Caspian Basin made statements in 3 panels on economy, investment and regional development, also environment, fisheries and restoration of the Caspian Sea ecosystem, as well as on transit, logistics and development of the North-South corridor. On the eve of the Rasht Caspian event, Governor General of Gilan Province Hadi Hakshenas said that all 5 neighboring states of the Caspian Sea have participated in the conference. In a press briefing on Monday evening, he said Governor Generals of 10 provinces bordering the Caspian Sea, plus Iran's ambassadors and general consuls in the littoral states, as well as their ambassadors in Tehran, are taking part in the 2-day event. 3 Iranian provinces of Gilan, Mazandaran and Golestan are bordering the Caspian Sea along a 650-kilometer coastline. Iran has nominated to host the Caspian Sea Summit in Tehran in August 2026, coinciding with the International Caspian Sea Day. Turaj Shiralilu, Rasht, A News.
Relations between Georgia and Ukraine are once again under pressure. New remarks from a senior Ukrainian official about former President Mikhail Saakashvili's possible transfer have prompted sharp reactions in Tbilisi. The exchange adds another layer to an already fragile diplomatic relationship. Here is Nini Nikolashvili with more.
A diplomatic dispute has intensified between Georgia and Ukraine following remarks from Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the Ukrainian president's office, stating that transferring former Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili to Ukraine remains part of their agenda. The comment drew an immediate and strong response in Tbilisi. Georgian Parliament Speaker Shalva Paposhvili accused the Ukrainian government of showing an unfriendly attitude toward the Georgian people and described the remarks as great ingratitude. According to Paposhvili, the issue is not only about Saakashvili, but about what he called a pattern of behavior from Kiev that he believes undermines Georgia. Paposhvili repeated earlier allegations that Saakashvili had been brought in Georgia illegally ahead of the 2021 local elections, accusations that Ukraine has previously denied. He linked the incident to attempts, in his view, to destabilize Georgia, though no independent evidence has been presented to support that claim. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze also reacted, referring to past statements from Podolyak made at the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Kobakhidze said that at the time, Ukrainian officials openly discussed the idea of opening what they called a second front in Georgia, a claim Kiev has consistently rejected. The Prime Minister added that Tbilisi does not take seriously any current proposals regarding Saakashvili's transfer. For its part, Ukraine maintains that its interest in the case is humanitarian and legal, and that it continues to advocate for Saakashvili, who holds Ukrainian citizenship. Podolyak reiterated in his interview that Kiev is actively working on the issue. The exchange comes at a time when Georgian-Ukrainian relations have been strained by months of political disagreements, particularly over Georgia's stance on the war in Ukraine and Kiev's criticism of several Georgian government's decisions. As of now, Georgian officials insist that there is no chance that Saakashvili will be transferred to Ukraine. Kiev has not formally requested such a transfer through public diplomatic channels as well. Tbilisi, Nini Nikolashvili, A News.
And hundreds of teenagers from more than 20 countries are in Baku this week for the International STEAM Azerbaijan Festival. They are competing in robotics, engineering, satellite design and hydrogen-powered vehicles. Our correspondent Sabina Abu-Bekirova reports from the Baku Expo Center.
Today is the second day of the International STEAM Azerbaijan Festival here at the Baku Expo Center, a space where kids and teenagers from dozens of countries are putting their ideas to the test. Robotics, drones, engineering challenges, all driven by young minds. So let's go inside and take a closer look.
SAF 2025 brings together more than 1,400 finalists from 22 countries. Students are competing in 18 categories. These range from robotics and artificial intelligence to renewable energy, drone navigation, CubeSat satellite design and mechatronics.
It's amazing. There's so many opportunities. These children, and looking at all these ones here too, they're a different culture from me. The things they learn, the cars, the robots, the submarines, it's mind-blowing. And I don't think our children realize how lucky they are to have these opportunities.
Among the most popular challenges this year is the hydrogen-powered vehicle race, where young engineers test cars designed to run for hours on a single fuel cell.
Well, we're here to represent our school and our country. We're the only hydrogen team in New Zealand. So it's a great opportunity we've been given, and we are willing to get here for a tea, as a New Zealand saying. So we're really grateful to be here, but we're hoping to come first as always, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Because these cars are not built to drive 4 hours straight, and that's what you have to make possible, with the hydrogen. And it isn't always easy. We had many problems with the car, but now it finally drives, and it works good. So.
Each team is judged on creativity, design quality, technical skill, and real-world impact. The program aims to build teamwork, problem-solving, and critical thinking.
Today we have built 2 robots and we will present them to you. Our first robot is called Aqua Cleaner. Aqua Cleaner detects trash in seas and oceans from a distance using a video distance sensor and grabs it with its claws.
Our second robot is called SorterBot. SorterBot sorts the trash collected by Aqua Cleaner according to its colour. For example, we used red and pink items.
The festival is part of the STEAM Azerbaijan project, now active in over 400 schools and 21 STEAM centres nationwide.
Our main goal is for children to learn to think logically and critically from an early age, to read and understand, to develop a production mindset, and to imagine from childhood how they can become creators and entrepreneurs.
And that vision is carried into the wider programme, which also features expert-led masterclasses and hands-on tech workshops.
Day 2 of SAF 2025 comes to an end as kids and teens finish their challenges. Next stage starts tomorrow with the finals where winners will be announced. Sabina Abu-Bekirova, A News.
You are up to date with the world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News for more.